Hello all, this is Ann Y. You're listening or watching to the Bible reading series and commentary. Quickly, if you haven't watched the first video, please do so. It has a disclaimer. Moving on, as usual, we need to switch this over to King James here real quick. One of those disclaimers is why I'm using King James. Some copyright rules. So let's begin. Matthew 6:9-13. After this manner therefore pray ye, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Genesis 22. King James Version, the offering of Yitzhak. It came to pass after these things, that God did tempt Abraham, and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am. And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son, Yitzhak, whom thou lovest, and give thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and saddled his ass, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up, and went up unto the place of which God had told him. Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes, and saw the place far off. And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship, and come again to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering, and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand, and a knife, and they went both of them together. And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, Behold, the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And they came to the place where God had told him of, and Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and took the knife to slay his son. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am, or here am I. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram, and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah-Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the 2nd time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things, that it was told to Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, and Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Rimah. She bare also Teba, and Gaham, and Thahash, and Ma'akah. That ends the Bible reading portion. A little quick overview. The Lord comes down to Abraham and requests something, but before that, I'm calling this the Here I Am chapter, because he's Abraham says this a couple times, once to God and once to his son, which shows submissiveness to both, which is interesting. We'll get to that in a second, but he says, "Here I am." And the Lord requests that he goes up. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh. So in the Masoretic, it says, "Offer him therefore a burnt offering." But in the Septuagint, it says, "Go away to the land of Moriah, and bring him up there for a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you." Which, bring him up there for a burnt offering can actually be read as bringing the child up there and then burning an offering on one of the mountains instead of burning your son. Which is one of the comments we'll get to later. But anyways, so they go up after preparing things. There was a couple days that they spent before they went up. They go up, and before the deed is done, the Lord provides a ram, and that is what is used. And that is why this word here, Jehovah Jireh, is the Lord provides, if I am not mistaken. And the Lord once again states that he will bless Abraham and his son, which, interestingly enough, the passage ends with Rebekah being born, not in that time frame, but the lineage of Bethuel. So let's get to the commentary here. There's a little bit. So after these things, so this comment here in the beginning of chapter 22, after these things, some of our sages say that this happened after the words, translating Devarim as words, of Satan, who was accusing and saying of every feast that Abraham made, "He did not sacrifice before you one bull or one ram." God said to him, does he do anything but for his son? Yet if I were to say to him, sacrifice him before me, he would not withhold him. So the Lord's saying he would not hold, even if he asked to sacrifice his son, he would not withhold. And some say, after the words of Ishmael, who was boasting Isaac that he was circumcised at the age of 13 and he did not protect, Isaac said to him, "With one organ you intimidate me. If the Holy One, blessed be he, said to me, sacrifice yourself before me, I would not hold back." Interesting backstory here. It reminds me of Job. There is Satan comes along in heaven and is like, and God says, "Where have you been?" And he says, "Prowling the earth." And God says, "Have you taken, a look at my servant Job?" And Satan goes, "Oh, your servant Job only, worships you because you bless him constantly." Which is pointed to this story here, in my opinion. But then here's like I said, the "here I am" portion. This is the reply of the pious. It is an expression of humility and expression of readiness. So Abraham expresses this not only to God, but to his son. So then we can kind of see the condition of Abraham's heart in this place. And he said, "Please take your son, your only one, whom you love, Isaac, and go away to the land of Moriah, excuse me. Man, I keep on thinking of Lord of the Rings, Moriah, and bring him up there for a burnt offering." It's probably might have been where he got his name. Anyways, so please take. Only an expression of a request. So this is just, would you do this for me? Is kind of another way to phrase that. God said to him, "I beg you, pass this test for me so that people will not say that the first one's tests had no substance." In cultural sense, I'm pretty sure that they they read these as Abraham's tests, and God, I guess, is coming to Abraham and saying, if we don't do this, then they'll consider it just, a moot point. There was no substance in the thing. Your son, Abraham said to him, I have 2 sons. God said to him, your only one. He said to him, this one is the only son of his mother, and that one is the only son of his mother. He said to whom you love, he said to him, I love them both. He said to him, Isaac. Now, why did he not disclose this to him at the beginning, in order not to confuse him suddenly, lest his mind become distracted and bewildered, and also to endear the commandment to him and to reward him for each and every expression? There's a lot in that. I'm gonna put forth my estimation. It has something to do with the fact that they cast Ishmael and Hagar out of the house. I could probably find some reasoning in my mind to think that happened, and therefore there may be a request of this. However, this whom you love could be read into really deeply, which I think this means whom you bless, whom you will maybe not give honor to, but kind of like a heritage would be a good way to think of it. Anyways, a couple different ways to look at it. So we'll just keep on moving. So the land of Moriah, this is actually referring to Jerusalem here, and it proves that by, how Jerusalem was built on that mountain, considering that is where the instruction comes forth. So bring him up. Here it says, he did not say to him, slaughter him. Okay, and I mentioned that the difference between, the Masoretic and the Septuagint, just to make another way of seeing this story. That it may not exactly have been God coming down and pointing him and saying, I guess, okay, let me say this. For me, I can see that coming about because the intent is not for that. It was not for him, so bring him up there for a burnt offering on one of the mountains. The problem with it would be, then what is this test? And it would only simply be that Abraham and his son go up and God provides. And I mean, that, as I say that, it doesn't seem to change the story all too much. However, with the portion of utilizing his son, there is an extra test of faith, I guess, if you consider the fact that God has said to him, I will multiply you greatly, and now I'm going to take the only thing that you have. So, yeah, I'm not so sold, but I can also see, I could also be brought to agreement that the intent wasn't initially for bringing Yitzhak up there for that purpose. So, we'll just continue. One of the mountains, the Holy One, blessed be He, makes the righteous wonder, and only afterwards discloses to them His intentions, and all this is in order to increase their reward, likewise to the land that I will show you, and likewise concerning, and proclaim upon it the proclamation. Hard for me to discern exactly why it says one of the mountains and how that comes about, but I agree that God does increase the reward by us not having the full disclosure of what's going on. Personally, for me, that's building up a confidence, and maybe a poor word for that, but a confidence within self and the relationship between them and the Lord. So faith, because hope is a thing that faith is built upon. We have to hope in the beginning, and if everything is disclosed, there's no sense in hoping. So we'll move on. And Abraham arose early in the morning, and he saddled his donkey, and he took 2 young men with him and Yitzhak his son to split wood for burnt offering. And he arose and went to the place which God had told him. And he arose early, he hastened. So this was not just like he dawdled. He went to go to do this, and he saddled he himself, and he did not command one of his servants, because love causes a disregard for the standard of dignified conduct. His 2 young men. So it is assumed here Ishmael and Eliezer, for a person of esteem, is not permitted to go out on the road with 2 men, so that if one must ease himself and move to a distance, the second one will remain with him. This must be a cultural thing, I guess, almost a form of an idiom. So just a long idiom, I guess. Like this, somebody who throws a stick in the air, it lands on the ground. And he split. So this word here for splitting wood just simply means to separate from being singular. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place from afar. On the 3rd day, he did not delay from showing it to him immediately, so that people should not say that he confused him and confounded him suddenly and deranged his mind. And if he had time to think it over, he would not have done it. So this is in accordance to God revealing it to him in time, so that he wasn't confused or confounded, or that he may think it through. How many times has that happened in my life? I'm not sure how revealing what it is exactly that's going to happen, because then you wouldn't have done the thing that he had asked. So anyways, Abraham said to his young men, "Stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will prostrate ourselves and return to you." Prostrate ourselves, probably in spirit towards the Lord, is what he meant. But that he said it that way, it seems almost to just tell him we're going to go up there and put our faces to the ground. But so yonder, a short way to the place that is before us, in the Midrashic interpretation, I will see where is the promise that the Holy One, blessed be He, said to me, "So will be your seed." Something more that I'm not seeing the connection. I'm sure it's probably extremely simple, but my mind is just not letting me see it. In return, so here we see return to you. He doesn't know what's going to happen, but we will. And then if you skip that, and return to you, he's almost prophetically, unknowingly, at least that's what it's saying, that they will return, both of them. So somehow, even if apparently, even if they go up there and he sacrifices his son, there will be something that happens, which, as we see later on in the New Testament, that same thing does actually go through, and he still returns. So this is foreshadowing, but also a faith in which there is something past what we understand in life. And Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering, and he placed it upon his son Yitzhak, and he took into his hand the fire and the knife, and they both went together. The knife, it is called this particular word because it consumes flesh, as it is stated, "And my sword will consume flesh," and because it renders meat fit for consumption. Another explanation, this knife was because the people of Israel still eat, and the reward given for it. This knife was because the people of Israel still eat, reward given for it. So there's probably, I should have looked up what these words are. Probably give me a little bit more. I'm just, for me, there may be symbolic reason for the fire and the knife, but for me, that this is just the sacrificial items that are required, and they both went together. Abraham knew that he was going to slaughter his son, was going as willingly and joyfully as Isaac, or Yitzhak, who was unaware of the matter. So up to this point, he was unaware. And here we see Isaac ask his father, my father, and Abraham's response, "Here I am, my son." So God and Abraham's response to him, "God will provide for himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." And they both went together. Now here's the interesting part. He says God will provide the lamb, and yet we know that God provides a ram instead of a lamb, which is another interesting thing I guess I could dive into, but for lack of time. Okay. So will provide for himself the lamb. He will see and choose for himself the lamb. If there will be no lamb, my son will be burnt for offering. And although Isaac understood that he was going to be slaughtered, they both went together with one accord. So at this point, the son knows, but they continue on. The son continues on with his father. And they came to the place where God had spoken to him, and Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood, and he bound Isaac his son and placed him on the altar upon the wood. This is just saying that the bindings were securely bound. And an angel God called to him from heaven, said, "Abraham, Abraham." And this here is an expression of affection, that he repeated his name. "Do not stretch forth your hand to the lad, nor do the slightest thing to him. For now I know that you are a God-fearing man, and you did not withhold your son, your only one, from me." Do not stretch forth to, sacrifice him. Abraham, said to him, "If so, I have come here in vain. I will inflict a wound on him and extract a little blood." He said to him, "Do not do the slightest thing." So I guess Abraham still, dedicated to the cause, is moving forward, but the angel says, "Don't even consider it. For now I know," Abraham said to him, "I will explain my complaint before you." So there's a complaint here, and obviously so. If you think about it for a second, Abraham has gone through this wild, he's over 100 years old now, but at 100 years old, he has a kid, miraculously, as promised to him, and now he's having to go up here and do this. "You retracted and said, 'Take now your son.' Now you say to me, 'Do not stretch forth your hand to the lad.' The Holy One, blessed be he, said to him, 'I shall not profane my covenant, but neither shall I alter the utterance of my lips. When I said to you, 'Take,' I was not altering the utterance of my lips. I do not say to you, slaughter him, but bring him up. You have brought him up. Now take him down." So I can agree with this in the sense that, how many times we've felt led to go into something, and it seems confusing. It seems counter to what we're supposed to be doing. And that it's actually going to destroy the things that we're meant to do. But this is for a reason. And so at that point of time, bring him up. Do not go through with what is happening now. For now I know. Hopefully I explained that well enough. For now I know, from now on I have response to Satan and the nations who wonder, what is my love towards you? Now I have a reason, for they see that you fear God. To my point that I'm trying to make, this is not for us, but this is to prove to everyone else the condition that we are in, where we are at together, the Lord and Abraham. And Isaac. And Abraham lifted up his eyes, and he saw, and lo, there was a ram, and after that it was caught in a tree by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering. So this was an interesting statement initially, because I read it, I think, wrong. Maybe I'm still reading it wrong, because I'm going to read it the way that I think latter. Lo, there was a ram, it was prepared for this since the 6 days of creation. And initially when I read that, I was like, wait, there was a giant flood. How did this thing stay in a thicket, I think that this is meaning that, rams were created on the sixth day, and that was a preparation for, what was going to be needed. After the angel said to him, "Do not stretch forth your hand," he saw it as the ram was caught, and that is why the Targum translates it. And Abraham lifted his eyes after these words, after the angel said, "Do not stretch forth your hand." So time-wise, when the statement was made, "Do not stretch forth your hand," he then saw the ram at that moment in a tree. So by its horns, for it was running towards. This is an interesting one. The reason why it got caught was because it was running towards Abraham, and Satan caused it to be caught and entangled among the trees. So sometimes, if you agree with this, for me, that just simply means that there are times when God is trying to bless us, and there are things at work to keep those blessings at bay. And maybe if the early story was true, the pre-story to this was true about Satan accusing Abraham of not ever sacrificing a ram to God. Maybe this is, Satan playing a little bit of a trick just to see how far Abraham would go. Because if the ram was there, he wouldn't have even continued to draw, to begin the process, possibly, instead of his son. Since it is written, "Offered it up for a burnt offering," nothing is missing in the text. Why then does it say, "instead of his son"? Over every sacrificial act that he performed, he prayed, "May it be your will that this should be deemed as if it were being done to my son, as if my son were slaughtered, as if his blood were sprinkled, as if my son were flayed, as if he were burnt and reduced to ash." So I guess there was a prayer that was, or a statement being said of this form every time that he made an offering to the Lord. Seems pretty extreme, but maybe it's a way to say to God, even if it was the most precious thing to me, consider it that. Abraham named that place, "The Lord will see it," as it is said to this day. On the mountain the Lord will be seen. So here we see in the Septuagint that the word Jehovah Jireh is not used. So verse 14 here. Yeah. So he just named the place here. The Lord will see. Its simply meaning is, as the Targum renders, the Lord will choose and see for himself this place to cause his divine presence to rest therein, and for offering sacrifices here. As it is said to this day, that future generations will say about it, "On this mountain, the Holy One, blessed be he, appears to his people." To this day, the future days, like speaking about the obvious, as time goes on, that appears through Scripture, for all the future generations who read this verse will refer until this day to the day in which they are living. So, as of right now, when you're listening to this, it is continuing. The Lord will see this binding to forgive Israel every year and to save them from retribution, in order that it will be said on this day and all future generations, "On the mountain of the Lord, Isaac's ashes." Love you too, hon. Isaac's ashes shall be seen heaped up and standing for atonement. Okay. This is an interesting statement to me, because if you have any doubt of God's faithfulness, I know for Christians, we like to, think of ourselves as New Israel, and therefore, the whole taking care of Israel thing gets convoluted. However, I want to just remind people that from this day in history, until this day, they're still here. Israelites are still here. So if we ever question the faithfulness, we look at that. Now, there is going to be a time when, and I don't know when that will happen, but there may be a time in the near future or whenever that this comes to a head. I'll put it that way. I will surely bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, as the sand that is on the seashore, and your descendants will inherit the cities of their enemies. Just on that note, I'm sorry, my mind is going back to this. There's prophecy about that, and that we should be weary, at some given point that this will that it will end. But that's for future discussions. Long way down the road. That I will surely bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens and as the sand that is on the seashore, and your descendants will inherit the cities of their enemies. I will surely bless you. So one for the Father and one for the Son, and I'll greatly multiply one for the Father and one for the Son. So he's saying that I'm going to bless you both. And Abraham returned to his younger men, or the young men, so presumably Ishmael and Eleazar, and they arose and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham remained in Beersheba. And this does not mean permanently dwelling, for he was living in Hebron 12 years prior to the binding of Isaac. He left Beersheba, and he went to Hebron, as it is said above in 21:34, and Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines for many years. This was discussed in the last chapter, but basically he was in the land of the Philistines longer than he was in the land of Hebron. And so it came to pass after these matters that it was told to Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah, she also bore sons to Nahor your brother. After these matters that it was told, when he returned from Mount Moriah, Abraham was thinking and saying, Had my son been slaughtered, he would have died without children. I should have married him to a woman of the daughters of Enir, Ashcol, or Mamre. The Holy One, blessed be he, announced to him that Rebekah, his mate, had been born. That is the meaning after these matters, after the thoughts of the matter that came about as a result of the Akedah. So, we'll get to that here in a second. She had a number of families equal to the number of the families of Abraham, just as Abraham engendered the 12 tribes who emerged from Jacob. 8 were the sons of the wives, and 4 were the sons of maidservants. So these also 8 sons of the wives and 4 sons of the concubine. Yes. Essentially, what is happening here is Rebekah's being born, Isaac's future wife. Bethuel begot Rebekah. All these genealogies were written only for the sake of this verse. Yeah, that's the point of all of this. When we read the genealogy there was a point to it. So genealogies can kind of be drab and dull, but there is a reason, and we should concern ourselves with that reason, and that is to prove that, God is preparing the way for Isaac. Now, I'm not going to dive too deeply into the question of, is there a chosen one? Has God, had my love born? That there's too many factors to that. I do believe that we are, called to be together. I mean, the whole Bible is people being brought into wedlock and then bearing children, and then that generation becoming something in the generations thereof, and that being the blessing or the crown of those two that came together. So I will simply say that is a question between you and the Lord, and not for some talking head on YouTube to answer. So thank you for listening all the way through. Hopefully it is a blessing to you. There's quite a bit of content there, and I probably missed a good bit. Sorry, I got confused there for a moment. I still don't know exactly what that was saying. But anyways, once again, thank you. I hope to see you next time. You're listening to the And Why series, Bible reading series. See you later.